Have you seen the new DMX documentary, Don't Try to Understand? It's a documentary about the late, great DMX. It's very interesting. Sometimes I'm funny with these types of movies and documentaries, especially if it's people that I've kind of followed for a long time or grew up with and things like that. It just hits me differently. And sometimes it's hard to view once they're gone. Same thing with like Tupac that or Biggie and, Michael Jackson, folks like that. This was an unexpected documentary in a way, because sometimes when people pass, they have like stuff that they just kind of patch together, they just throw together, and it's not really put together well. Footage you already seen before, interviews you already seen before. They're trying to chop it up into pieces to make it into something cohesive, to do like a narrative thing or whatnot, and then you always kind of question because the person's no longer here. What's the intent of the movie? And so this one starts off with pretty much covering the last year up until his passing, which is very interesting. It starts off with him getting picked up from, I can't remember if it was prison or jail, and everybody's glad to see him, his manager, a couple family members, management team, folks like that. And they're just kind of giving hugs and stuff, and he's glad to see everybody. And while in the car, first thing he started talking about is like, hey, getting his schedule ready for up and coming things like new album and touring and all this other kind of stuff. And he just like got into the vehicle, and it was just so funny that when he started trying to play music for him for potential songs in the car, he was like kind of like, oh no man, don't do that right now, because I can't do nothing about it. I'm not in the studio. I don't want to even get riled up like that. And then next thing you know, they're cutting to a scene where he's still in the vehicle and they're playing the music and he's rapping and kind of getting hype and stuff. And it's just interesting that even though they were glad to see him, and I know they wasn't trying to be messy or anything, it's like he needed a time to decompress. He just got out of a situation of being kind of locked up for a while, and he needed, a slow entry into things. And even though everybody's excited for him and happy to see him and all this other kind of stuff, it just kind of kicked into gear as soon as he got out. Which is interesting to notice that. But the documentary kind of follows his journey back and pulling himself together and getting back on, I guess, pretty much the ride of fame and success, from him signing a new deal with Def Jam, who he started off with, to go back onto that label. You got to go to, I guess, his parole officer or court to find out what the terms are for him, as far as him not being able to be around certain people. It's almost, this documentary is very interesting because they're kind of showing action and reaction, or just like with when he got out of being locked up, to starting back to all this stuff, to him starting a new record deal with Def Jam, and they talking about all the money he's gonna get and all this other kind of stuff. He signed a new deal with management, and then no later than that is talking about all the money he's gonna lose because people are suing him for no reason, and they're just saying just pay it, and he's kind of like, why would I pay for something that I don't even know that I did for sure? His baby mothers, he has a whole bunch of kids, and they want money and all this other kind of stuff. And he's just saying, I just wanted to have fun. I just want to come back and do my thing and have fun. And it's all this other kind of stuff. And it's just so sad when something that you love is tied in with stuff that hurts you. So it's this confliction with what you need to survive as far as to fulfill you, but it comes with pain. And I think a lot of artists kind of deal with that in a way. And so for the most part, it focused with his newest child that he has, his son Exodus, and his mother, and they're just kind of traveling around. It's his fiance. And it's just it's interesting to see that. It's just like he needs a break. He's not going to get a break. And the world is just on him, and he's just trying to hang in there. And he's just trying to get some semblance of normalcy, but, what's that for him? It was neat to see him with his new child, which is kind of giving him some more perspective. I think kids just kind of help brighten you up, as much as they are a lot to have to deal with and to take care of. They also make you focus, can possibly help you to focus on what's important. And so it was neat to see that. It was neat to see him he's starting back up his tour stuff, so they're showing footage from old tours. And you can see the contrast from him being older, from him being younger, and then the love for people having for him, and then also with the love people have for him and coming to his shows and stuff. You got the people that just chasing him down, wanting him for autographs or wanting this and wanting that, and he's just being pulled from so many different directions. And then he seemed like almost ungrateful for wanting a moment to himself. And so that was just very interesting to see. And it was just kind of a day in the life behind the scenes. So if you saw him as like a superhero rock star, this really gives you more of an idea of what he's going through from behind the scenes, which is very telling and very interesting as well. And the cool thing about it, which I thought was interesting, and I already kind of figured, is that the person he is behind the stage is the person he is on the stage as well, as far as like how he treats people, his personality, and things like that. Most times when you have people dealing with that kind of a profession or job or whatever, you have people that kind of got to switch up. You're a different person at home as you are at work, or if you're an artist or whatever, it changes. And for him, it just kind of always him, which is interesting and refreshing to see. So at least that wasn't a thing that kind of threw him off, even though not knowing when to kind of pull back and shut things down, not acknowledging the difference between the two and not changing up, that could be dangerous too, because you can't treat the world like you treat your home. And that could be a thing. I thought it was pretty touching when he went back to where he's from, Yonkers, and he came across these young MCs, and they were just kind of like in a parking lot. Because this dude goes wherever he wants to go, and people let him be him, which I think is kind of cool, because most people can't move around like that. So he's going back, and these young MCs coming to him, coming from the place he's coming from, and his young MC that he deals with kind of comes at him in a way, talking about he just needs a chance. And then DMX give him a critique of his rhymes, telling him like, you gotta put more into it. You gotta speak to people. You gotta be like you're speaking to people. It was interesting because it seemed like even though he was hearing what he was saying to him, it's almost like the kid wasn't ready to hear it. He just wanted out of the situation. And it felt kind of interesting that, not that he wasn't connecting with the young dude, he was, but it just seemed like the kid was a little standoffish just because he wasn't getting, I guess, an answer that he thought he wanted to get from him. And there was another young guy that was around too, and he was just told the truth. He's like, I just want out of here, and Earl just really connected to that kid, really just kind of held him close and just told him, like, the kid was just, falling apart, kind of crying, and he just embraced him and just like letting him know it's okay to cry, just let it out, like, I acknowledge your pain. And I thought that was beautiful to see. And it just really just showed how that was different from the encounter he had with the other young MC that he had just had. And it was just interesting. But this movie showed a lot of that. It was just neat to see. I liked that as well. I liked him. They also talked about things like he was getting ready for a photo shoot for GQ. So he just pretty much tying everything together for his comeback. So he got the album coming, he got the stories coming out, he got the GQ cover, just kind of getting things back rolling. I remember during this time too, he just had his verses with Snoop Dogg. And it was just really neat to see that, he's in the beginning stages of pulling himself together, and he's excited about what it was, to be back and to be doing a new album and things like that. And so it's neat to see this behind the scenes footage. And I could have swore I remember hearing that Swiss Beats was working on a documentary, or a documentary was being done, or they were filming or something while he was doing his comeback. So I think this is what he was referring to. So it's kind of neat to see it. And like I said, like other ones like this, even though they have flashbacks and different things like that, because they also talk about, his first son, Xavier, and how all the stuff he went through growing up with him as a father and what it meant to him, and when they was on Iyanla Fix My Life, and, just kind of his side of the story. So it's neat to see like his young son that's a few years old, as opposed to his firstborn son and their relationships and things like that. So this documentary is just very interesting with showing both sides of things. It's just very interesting. But yeah, like I said, so this documentary felt differently. It didn't feel rushed. It felt like it had a narrative and it was pulled together. So it was kind of neat that it had focus and a direction. Because like I said, most of the time we see stuff like this, it's all over the place. They're just trying to patch together whatever could be patched together to get through the documentary. Like I said, you have him going to like his hometown barbershop, going to a liquor store, going to see folks, giving hugs and stuff. Everybody happy to see him back, and like his energy that he had when he first started doing touring and stuff, and then when he came back and he was pulling his stuff together again, and just the contrast between the two, but he still had the same kind of fight and hunger, and he still started off with a prayer and ended with a prayer, and how he connected people. And he also had people like this guy that was in prison, and was listening to his music, and he's like, "Guy saved my life." He's like, "Man, I'm 52, and this dude was a prophet. He's, just all the people he touched, and it wasn't like people were asking, what did he do for you or whatever. It was none of that. It was kind of like, who's this for? Oh, this is for DMX. DMX, da 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 da. So it was one of those kind of things where unsolicited people just had love for that man, and he had love for them too. But it was just like I think it was just a lot being taken from him, and I don't think it was all to be messy, but that's what kind of comes with that position. And then it got towards the end where he was disappearing and people were looking for him, and he's supposed to have this final interview for the movie documentary that they're supposed to be doing, and he had disappeared and stuff. And I'm thinking like, oh man, here we go. We got to end it like this. And they come to find out, he had put himself into a local rehab spot. So I think he had got back on drugs since he's back home after touring and stuff. And so you get to hear like the voicemail calls between people trying to figure out what happened to him. But they found out that he had checked himself in. He was stressing about everything going down and stuff, and he had to regroup. So I was so glad. I didn't want it to end like that. I didn't want it to end like that. And so after that scare, it was neat to see him again and emerge from it again. Because it was like having everybody saying that they were praying for him and hoping he's better. And it was just neat to see the community and what he meant to the community. And then towards the end, he had like a reconciliation with his ex, which was his first wife. And they've been knowing each other, together since they were like 18. And it was cool to see that. And she brought the kids and her older son, who spoke about him earlier, to have them kind of finally get back together to kind of, I guess, reunite in a way, and he get a chance to see his new little stepbrother. It was just interesting, but they really had a moment, him and his dad, and it was just like the whole time, you just pretend to be, not pretending, but everybody's on their best foot, so nobody's really speaking, but it's kind of like nice, but not really saying anything, kind of communication. And towards the end, when it's time for him to leave, they're kind of sitting there and It was hard for me to watch that, but he was pretty much saying he was proud that his son turned out okay, considering all the things he's been through and all the ways it could have went. That his son turned out to be the good man that he was, and that just broke his son down, and it broke me down too in a way. Like I said, just the way they were looking at each other and trying to get the words out, I couldn't even look at it. It was almost too personal for me to even look at. But it was beautiful. It was beautiful. And so they had that moment. It was good that he got a chance to work it out with his oldest son and his kids. He has a few kids by his first wife. But it was cool that part of his family that he got a chance to reconcile in a way. At least got to a place of I let you know what I felt and understanding in a way. No guarantee that it changes anything, but you had it out, and it kind of ended on him with the family, and they're having like a little get together or whatever. It was like maybe a Halloween party or something that they were there together, and they were just listening to old music and singing, and it was just interesting. And they were just together like a family, and he was saying this is all about family and connection and things like that, which was beautiful. And they were singing, I think it was Glass Night version, I think, of The Way We Were, if I remember correctly. And it just shows like Earl just singing it, and he's known for knowing these old school songs and loving R&B and things like that. And so he's just singing the song, missing all the notes, but it didn't matter. He just put the soul into it, just singing it The Way We Were, and it was just so beautiful. And it ended with that. And I thought that was a brilliant way to end this movie on a good note. How it's ironic the lyrics matched to his life in a way. It was his truth in the moment and in his life. So I thought it was just very powerful that it ended like that. Yeah, so I really enjoyed this. It was hard to watch at times. It was fun. It was interesting. It was informative. It was a lot of things. So if you want to just kind of know more about what was going on with DMX, especially that last year of his life, and just kind of like just the circus that is his life, this is a cool watch to see. And if you're a DMX fan, then yeah, you check this thing out. It's on HBO called DMX Don't Try to Understand, which is really an appropriate title. But with the title, this documentary does give you some understanding. Don't try to understand them, but this documentary does give you some understanding of who DMX was. I hope he found peace. I hope he found peace. He was trying hard here to find it, but I don't think it was anything here that could quite give him what he needed, even though he was trying. But yeah, so rest in peace, 1970 to 2021. All right. Till next time, peace.